Maximum jail sentences for violent offenders against emergency workers could be doubled to 2 years in England and Wales under proposals published and put forward by ministers. The proposals follow a surge in assaults against NHS workers and police officers during the coronavirus lockdown, even as other crimes fell. Assault on emergency workers rose, just get this, 24% in the 4 weeks to the 7th of June compared to the same period last year. In response, the Home Secretary has said they need to send a clear and simple message that vile thugs would not get away with such appalling behaviour. Let's speak with John Apter, National Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales. Afternoon to you, John. We've talked about this many times. You and I have debated it. We've seen these grim statistics. It looked for a bit if things were changing. There's been an active campaign, of course, for years to get this recognised. What's your response, firstly, to that rise in figures? And secondly, to the Home Secretary's message about taking this even more serious than they previously were?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ian. The figures are horrendous, aren't they? And during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, many crime types fell, which is no great surprise because there were fewer people out and about. But we saw this alarming rise of people assaulting police officers and paramedics and nurses. But it was the way they were being assaulted. So very often they were being spat at or coughed at. In effect, this virus was being weaponized. I've spoken to officers where they've been attacked in this way, and these vile, disgusting creatures that we have to call human beings actually said to the police officers, I've got the virus. I hope you get it, and I hope you die. Yeah. And we needed something to be done. I've been campaigning for stiffer sentences for years, it seems now, and the government are finally listening. We did have a slight increase in from 6 months because many people have said to me, look, people should be sent to prison for years for the most serious of offences. Well, those offences like GBH and attempt murder and so on, they're still there. They're still there. This is for the offences like the common assault. Yeah. So a spitting offence, which, historically would probably not see a custodial sentence, those who are responsible. But things had to change because the figure of 24% is horrendous. But over the past 12 months, police officers alone, doesn't include the firefighters, the nurses and the paramedics who get assaulted. Police officers alone, there's been almost 30,000 police officers assaulted. 30,000, 85 a day, every day. Something has to be done. We have to send a clear message as a society that is completely unacceptable. Sorry, Ian, go on.
No, go on, John, you carry on.
No, I just get sick and tired of seeing time and time again these individuals, and they're violent offenders. If you commit this act, you're a violent offender. They commit these offences and then they walk away from court with nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Yeah. And they are literally sticking two fingers up at justice. Something has to be done. The Home Secretary's listened, she's acted, and we'll work with her to make sure that something good comes from this.
So this, John, this is work in progress, isn't it? I know that there's been a lot of cross-party support. I'm thinking of MPs like Holly Lynch, like Louise Hay, like Philip Davies, from Labour and Tory there, who Absolutely. Have actively, over the last few years, tried to advance this. It made some progress, didn't it, a year or so ago in Parliament? So things did change. Yeah,
it did. It made a bit of progress. Now, what we had was we were always pushing for an increase of up to 2 years, from 6 months to 2 years. And unfortunately, the government of the day, which was still a Conservative government, but different people in different roles, only allowed it to go to 12 months for whatever reason. And we were never happy with that. We were never content with that. We've always been pushing. And certainly the current Home Secretary, Priti Patel, I've been lobbying very hard saying, you can't just talk the talk, you have to deliver something. And, we've had some pretty blunt conversations and we're on the same page. And, I'm not all about locking people up and throwing away the key. I believe passionately in rehabilitation of offenders, but these are violent individuals and a message has got to be sent. Yeah. But what we've also got to do, which I don't think we've done historically, it's no good having the legislation in place, but then not have the sentencing guidelines amended to reflect the new law.
Sure.
So I'm now working with the Sentencing Council, who put together, they're an independent body, who put together the sentencing guidelines so that when this law hopefully does go through, the better sentencing, then there's consistency across the country of what people are getting sentenced for.
And we seem to, I mean, there's a procession of these kind of stories. You look at them, and it's obviously certain cases involving police officers that we can't talk about for legal reasons, but are very much in the news at the moment. But there's other stories out there that, you've got an officer kicked in the head and then somebody taking a selfie while doing it. I mean, you just sort of wonder how we arrived at this point in our evolution, John, where
Absolutely.
that became okay.
Yeah, indeed. And it's almost like a hobby now for some, everybody's got a mobile phone with a camera in it.
Sure.
There is an offence of failing to assist a constable, very, very seldom used. But I've actually had conversations with the Home Secretary. I'd like to go further. I would like to see specific offences where people will participate in this hobby of filming, not for evidential purposes, because we have to draw a distinction. There are some people who, out of fear, they don't want to get involved. And we have to understand that. Might not like it, but we have to understand it. And they will video to provide the police with the evidence that we need to put these thugs behind bars. But there are far too many who video just for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, indeed.
I want to see legislation brought in that holds them to account.
You've just reminded me, there was a video that I know you commented on social media yesterday of an officer that had clearly been badly injured with a leg injury. And people literally just walking past this guy as he's writhing on the floor.
What sort of society are we in? It's I'm a realist. I've been a cop for a long, long time, and I get that some people do not like the police because of what we have to do. We have to stop some people doing bad things, and some people don't like that. Well, you know what? They need to get over themselves, because if you see a police officer in distress, the same as a nurse or a firefighter or a paramedic, then my God, just as a human being, a fellow human being, wouldn't you want to help them?
You'd think.
If there are some individuals that don't feel that they should do that, then they're not the sort of people that we want amongst our communities. They need to be behind bars if they're involved in these sort of crimes. So I know that's hard line, but I get sick to death of speaking to my colleagues who have been treated as punch bags by some members of society, and then they feel they're let down by the criminal justice system. Something has to give, and I'm pleased that this Home Secretary has listened, she's acted, and let's hope that we get this 2-year sentence in place. And the courts actually start using the legislation they've been given.
Indeed. I think that's echoed by most people. John, always great to have you on. Thank you. John Apter, who's the National Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales. It's very hard to think of anybody that could possibly disagree with this. But you're talking about people who are in specific jobs here, whether it's paramedics, whether it's firefighters, whether it's police officers in this case, who are doing the hardest of jobs already. And to suffer assault and abuse while carrying out an already difficult job and task, and often in incredibly dangerous, volatile situations. I mean, you haven't got to scan social media that much to see some of this. And the image I saw yesterday was it was distressing to see a police officer who looked to have had a broken leg. I think it turns out that he had a very damaged leg as it transpired, but this guy was clearly writhing in agony on the floor. His colleagues had arrested somebody. They'd taken that person to the police car, and people just walking past this guy. No one saying, "Are you okay?" But he'd clearly suffered what looked to be an alleged assault, I have to say. And there are many of these cases. And now taking a selfie as you go with it, because we've had this kind of madness envelop our world and our perception over the last 5 or 6 weeks in terms of how we see the police. It's become a kind of to many of these kids, these guys are public enemy number one, but they'd be the first people you'd call if you were in trouble. We'll take some comments on that as well. If you are a member of the emergency services, whether you're a firefighter, police officer or paramedic and the like, and this is your world, you will identify with all of these challenges. So when somebody is caught and collared for attacking you in the line of duty and they get, a suspended sentence or a little bit of a fine, that just makes an already distressing situation so much worse.